Hello everybody and welcome back to Odin's movie blog. I am the critic, who is a cynic. Hope you're doing well, and today we're going to be talking about the 1-year anniversary of Star Wars The Last Jedi. Now, obviously I could make this a very negative video because there are a lot of negative things to say about The Last Jedi, but you know what? At the end of the day, I feel like I've said a lot about, and there's more that will be said about The Last Jedi and the effects that it's had on the Star Wars universe, how it's broken canon, how it's broken plot, etc. All these things can be said. But what I do want to say is I actually think that there are some good things. In fact, there are a couple of really amazing things that came out of The Last Jedi that I want to talk about today in celebration of the worst Star Wars film ever created at this point. And that is the fact that without The Last Jedi, I don't think the people that I've met over this process in this community would have ever happened. For starters, also, I don't think that this channel would exist without what happened to The Last Jedi, because just to kind of give you a little bit background about myself, because it's been a while. You know, I've been doing this now for the better part of a year, and it's really hard to believe that it's almost been a full year since I, fully started doing YouTube and started doing videos almost every single day, talking about the basic news from Star Wars, from movies, from Marvel, all these other things, and it's just truly has flown by for me. But this channel, I don't think, would have existed if it hadn't been for the atrocity that was The Last Jedi, because I very much was I've always been into movies. I love talking about movies. I love talking about film. I love giving reviews. I love doing all this stuff. I've loved this and had a passion for it a very, very long time. Before I got started on YouTube, what I would often do was I would usually start a blog. So you could probably still find, I had a Tumblr blog. I had a blog spot. Like, this is where I would usually do, is I, write some random thoughts about movies. I would do predictions for the Oscars. That was like my big thing. I would love to do Oscars predictions, Oscar bowling, things like that. Things that I was very passionate about. But then very quickly I would fall off. I wouldn't see a movie for a bit, or I just didn't feel like writing because I hate writing. I would much rather talk. I'd much rather, express my thoughts in spoken word than anything else. And so I just found myself in this position of, I want to do this and I'm passionate about talking about it, but I don't want to type. I don't want to have to write, because I absolutely hate writing. It's something that I've never liked, from high school through college all the way until my adult life. I just never have had a passion for it. And so then earlier this year, I actually started doing a podcast. And the way that I actually started too was I actually was doing a podcast with some friends of mine. You can still find it. It's called The Pot of Gumbo. We stopped doing it for various other reasons, but the episodes are still online. You can find them on iTunes, Google Play, etc. And we would talk about just random stuff. So not even just movie-related stuff. We would talk about random pop culture stuff. We would talk about our favorite 90s cartoons. Basically it was a wide variety of different topics. And so if that's your kind of thing, if you like kind of the topic of the day type show, go check it out. We have a lot of fun. We have a very good time. And so I started doing that, and from that, about maybe a couple weeks after we started doing that, I found myself being a lot more comfortable just speaking in a podcast form, and so I started my own podcast, and you can still find those episodes as well, Odin's Movie Blog Podcast. In fact, for a long time, until my wife graciously made the logo for this channel, I had the crappy the crappy theater seats with the text over it. Like, I just made it one day just randomly, and I was like, oh, this looks good. And it wasn't just Odin's Movie Blog, it was the Odin's Movie Blog Podcast, because I had a blog and I also decided to do a podcast in conjunction with that, and eventually the podcast became a lot more prominent to me. And maybe about a few times, like maybe not even 4 or 5 weeks into my own podcast, all of a sudden I discovered a channel, and that was Jeremy over at Geeks and Gamers. And I discovered the Geeks and Gamers channel, and I started listening to all the things he had to say, and I saw a guy who was just telling it like it is. I'm a guy that's been a fan of movie review channels for a very long time, and even though they are very much by the numbers, go to people like Chris Stuckman, for a great example of that. He's a very by the numbers guy. He doesn't like to badmouth anybody. He doesn't like to I feel like sometimes he holds back some. He never gives every single movie a good review, but I feel like there are certain times that other people like Jeremy Johns, who will go off on a movie and will make his thoughts very abundantly clear. I feel like when it comes to Chris Stuckman, he would always hold back just a little bit. But I saw the complete opposite in Jeremy. I saw a guy who was passionate about Star Wars, but also someone who was not just going to BS. He wasn't just a guy that was just going to allow, propriety to get in the way of things. He was going to be very honest with his emotions, and he didn't care about whether or not it would affect a press patch. He didn't, a press pass. He wouldn't care if it was going to possibly affect a relationship, getting exclusive interviews with people who work at Lucasfilm, people who are involved with Star Wars. Like, that wasn't his big thing. He cared more about being honest. He cared more about just telling it like it is than anything else. And I've really found myself attracted to that kind of personality, because it was a way that I've always been. I've always been kind of that truth teller. I always am that kind of person where I just like to say it how it is. I don't like to, beat around the bush. I'm that kind of person where I would go to see a show. For example, when I was younger, I have a great example of this. I went to go see a musical. I went to go see a show And so one in the cast came to me afterwards and said, "What do you think of the show?" And I said, "I thought it was awful." And people like, and she was she was very upset. She said, "Why would you say that? Why would you, not say that it was great? Why wouldn't you just, make it up?" It's like, well, exactly that, because at that point I'd just be making it up and I wouldn't be telling you how I honestly feel about it. And so I saw what Jeremy was doing, and he was just being very upfront and honest with his thoughts on it. And it got me not only into possibly wanting to start my own YouTube channel, which again, he motivated me to do that, but also too, he got me into Star Wars even more so than I already was. Because I will say, and I've said this from the very beginning, I'm not like a hardcore Star Wars guy. I like Star Wars a lot. I love the original trilogy a lot. I grew up with the prequels, so Star Wars has been in my blood for a very long time. But I didn't really get to dive further into the Star Wars universe until Jeremy spoke passionately about the Clone Wars series. It wasn't until he talked about Rebels. It wasn't until I started hearing about the expanded universe, the extended universe, and started to hear about things like the Thrawn trilogy, Darth Plagueis, like all these other awesome, really cool stories. And so I started to dive into those. I'm almost done with the Thrawn trilogy, and it's just been a wondrous adventure, because these characters that I genuinely really like in the movies, I now know a little bit more about, and they're going on other stories that we just never really got from George Lucas, and we have definitely not gotten from Disney Star Wars either. And then I dove into Clone Wars, and Clone Wars was an amazing show. I was amazed because I thought to myself, all I ever saw was the animation. That's all I ever saw. I saw, oh, this animation looks crap. And then when I started watching the show, I realized, wait a minute, there's a really great character development in this series. There's really great stories being told. There are great throwbacks. There are great characters that are being developed over time. And it was great. And now I'm halfway through season 2 of Rebels, and I'm loving that too. And I know that it's definitely not as good as Clone Wars, but I still love it. I still think it's a great series. I love all the characters. I love all the throwbacks, all the, when you have everything going on with Rex. It's so cool. It's just so cool to have all of these interconnecting worlds. And so I look to this and to Rian Johnson thanking passionate Star Wars fans when you're at The Last Jedi. Even though this is a man that has never taken blame, has never said that it was his fault that the movie did not, deliver how it should. And if you want proof again of how it did not deliver, just look to the audience score. And everyone's going to try and say, oh, it was Russian bots. Well, it's interesting that the Russian bots just took a day off on every other Star Wars film, every other Star Wars franchise, every other movie for that matter. It makes no sense that they would go after one movie. Like, why is it that they would go after this one movie this one time? It just doesn't make any sense that anyone would do that for any reason whatsoever. The reason why the score is so low is because it broke the fandom. I mean, you can just look to the number of channels that have grown out of this disaster. You can just look to how Geeks and Gamers went from around 800 subs in the beginning of this year, in January of this year, had around 800 subs, is now almost at 100,000 subscribers. They're at a little around 96,000 at this moment of time, and even though I don't think they're going to hit 100K before the end of the year, it's still possible. It is very much still possible, and at the very least, they're going to hit 100K next year. And I being part of that community now, Jeremy reaching out to me saying, hey, we love your passion, come make a video a week for us talking about the box office. All of this would not be possible if it wasn't for Star Wars The Last Jedi. And so even though Rian Johnson still obviously just doesn't get it, obviously he's still at the point where he's, calling people who are critical of his film man babies, unlike someone else that I'm going to talk about tomorrow who's taking full blame, says, if you don't like my movie, it is my fault. If the movie doesn't do well, guess what? It is my fault. That's a thought process that Rian Johnson and so many other elites like him don't think about. And even though that's the case, even though I could go off even more about all the crazy things that he's done and all the terrible things that have happened as far as like the story and the lore and everything that Disney has done to ruin Star Wars, at least from the live action film perspective, all I can say is, you know what? Thank you, Rian Johnson. This is a huge thank you to Rian Johnson, because you know what? Without you and your terrible movie, I would not have met Jeremy. I would not have been a part of Geeks and Gamers. I would not have met amazing people like Ivan Ortega, like Anna That Star Wars Girl, like Jesse Milestone, comic artist Pro Secrets, Ethan Van Sciver, world-class BSers, Jeff over there. And, I would not have been part of the High Council ever. And yet here I was last week, finally a part of the High Council. And so many other channels. I mean, there's so many other channels. Lethal Lightning. I think about, the Adam Shawhan and the Shawhan Wiener Dog clan. Even though they're not, making videos just about their puppies is just absolutely amazing to me. And there's so many other channels. There really are so many other channels, and I know that I'm leaving a lot out. But I wouldn't have met this amazing community. I wouldn't have met my fellow Asgardians. I wouldn't have Asgardians in this presence if it wasn't for this movie. So at the end of the day, it's been a year. And even though it's been terrible as far as the Star Wars plot goes and as far as the new sequel trilogy is concerned, because, it was just that bad, it's also been a really great year as well, because you know what, at the end of the day, I've met so many amazing people. I've started my own channel. We're almost at 7,000 subscribers. The fact that 10,000 subscribers is within reach within the next 6 months is just amazing to me. The fact that I'm able to look at things like Social Blade and see that even 100,000 subscribers is at least possible over the next few years, it's just phenomenal. I'm without words. And so not only is this a thank you to Rian Johnson, because at the end of the day, without him, guys, I don't think that this community would not have come together the way that it has. I honestly don't think that I would be on YouTube. I don't think that I would be making videos every day. And so I also want to say a huge thank you to all of my subscribers and to all those who have supported me. Because without you guys, without you watching me, without you giving me advice, without you leaving comments, and I know that I don't respond to all the comments like I used to, but I do read them. I try and read every single comment that I possibly can. Without you guys, I don't know where I would be. And I just want to say thank you. It's been a crazy year, and I cannot wait for another year, especially as we ramp up for episode 9 and all the nonsense that's going on with that. The fact that Disney still will not admit the faults that it has. We can take a second to step back and say, yeah, it's crap. But you know what? There's been so many great things that have come out of the nonsense and out of the chaos. And a lot of that is, of course, thanks to Kathleen Kennedy and Rian Johnson. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you, Rian Johnson, and thank you, Kathleen Kennedy, because without you, I would not be able to say at this point in time, thank you to all of my subscribers, all of my patrons, all of the people that support me and are just amazing people. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching. If you like this video, smash that like button. Please give me a thumbs up. It really does help me out a lot and helps me know that you like the content and want more of it. And also leave me a comment as well. I'd love to hear your own thoughts about this. Maybe where you were. Tell me your story too, where you were a year ago when this movie came out, and just the amazing people that you've met over this process, because trust me, I've met a lot of amazing people, including my Valkyries, Tina and Steph. And yes, I'm going to shout you out, because if you've never heard of Tina or Steph on this channel, you might want to, because they're two of the most amazing women that I've ever met in my entire life. They are passionate Star Wars fans. They are passionate movie fans. And I learned so much from them when we do our live streams. And also they work so hard to support me. And I also, with that, just as I wouldn't be here without Jeremy and all the other channels that I'm talking about right now, I also wouldn't be here without Tina and Steph, who've been with me. Steph from like second live stream is I think the earliest that I've seen her be a part of this channel, and Tina not long after that. So I want to give a huge shout out to them as well. And they didn't expect me to do this, but I wanted to. But anyway, thank you all guys so much for watching. Have a great day, and as always, God bless.